I thought I had it all. A perfect marriage. A devoted husband. A life most women could only dream of. But dreams have a cruel way of turning into nightmares. I stood in front of the grand mirror in our lavish penthouse, my reflection staring back at me, a woman draped in designer silk, adorned with diamonds, yet empty inside. A woman who had spent years believing in a love that never truly existed. Because tonight, I had proof. Proof that my husband, Nathaniel Blackwood, the man I had loved, trusted, and sacrificed for, had married me not for love, but for power. And the worst part? He never even bothered to hide it. It started with whispers, strange phone calls, a change in the way he touched me, absent, distracted, like I was nothing more than a formality in his life. I ignored the signs at first, convincing myself that I was overthinking. But tonight, fate had other plans. An email. One I wasn't meant to see. A forwarded message from his assistant, confirming a secret investment under his Nyman investment that would give him controlling shares in my father's company. The company that had been in my family for generations. The subject line read, "Final stage, the Devereaux takeover." I gripped the edge of the vanity, my heart pounding so loudly it drowned out the sound of the city below. This wasn't love. This was a calculated move. A game of power, and I had been nothing but a pawn. I should have cried. I should have felt broken. But all I felt was fire. Nathaniel thought he had won. That I would sit silently while he stripped me of everything. But he underestimated me. Because I wasn't just Isabella Devereaux, the woman he deceived. I was about to become the woman who would destroy him. I wasn't always this woman calculating, cold, and ready to bring down the man I once loved. There was a time when I believed in love. A time when I believed in him. Nathaniel Blackwood walked into my life 5 years ago, and from the very first moment, I was captivated. He wasn't just handsome, he was magnetic. The kind of man who commanded attention without even trying. With sharp green eyes that always seemed to hold a secret and a smile that could disarm even the coldest of hearts. He was everything a girl like me should have stayed away from. But I didn't. I was Isabella Devereaux, heiress to one of the most powerful business empires in the country. To the world, I was the perfect picture of wealth and privilege, but behind the diamond-studded facade, I was just a girl who wanted to be loved for who she was, not for the billions attached to her last name. And Nathaniel made me feel exactly that. We met at a charity gala, one I had been forced to attend by my parents. It was the usual scene, stiff smiles, fake conversations, and businessmen discussing deals over expensive whiskey. I was sipping my champagne, bored out of my mind, when I felt someone watching me. I turned, and there he was. "You look like you'd rather be anywhere but here," he had said, his voice smooth as silk, laced with amusement. I laughed, because it was true. Is it that obvious? Painfully. His smirk had been effortless, confident. "Let me guess. You were dragged here to play the perfect daughter, smile for the cameras, and keep up the Devereaux image?" His words had startled me. People didn't usually talk to me like that. They tiptoed, careful not to offend the only daughter of Charles Devereaux. But not Nathaniel. He wasn't intimidated by my name. That night, we talked for hours. He wasn't like the other men in my world, men who only saw me as a stepping stone to power. He was ambitious, yes, but he had built his own empire from the ground up. A self-made man, someone who didn't need my wealth to stand tall. Or so I thought. Our love story unfolded like a dream. Late-night drives, stolen kisses under the stars, whispered promises of forever. He made me feel seen, cherished. Like I was more than just an heiress. When he proposed, I said yes without hesitation. I should have known then. My father had been hesitant. "Men like Nathaniel don't come into your life without a reason, Isabella," he had warned. "Be careful." But I had brushed him off. I wasn't a foolish little girl. I knew how to tell the difference between love and ambition. Except I didn't. Our wedding was grand, the kind of affair that made headlines for weeks. Every detail was perfect, and as I walked down the aisle, my heart was full of love, blind to the truth that would one day shatter me. The first few years of our marriage were bliss. Or at least, they felt that way. Nathaniel was everything a husband should be: attentive, passionate, supportive. He stood by me at every event, whispered sweet nothings when the cameras weren't watching, made love to me like I was his entire world. But love is a clever disguise. And the man I had given my heart to? He had only ever been playing a role. It started slowly, so subtly I almost missed it. The shift in his touch, the way his eyes no longer lingered on me the way they used to. Business trips that lasted longer than necessary. The first time I truly questioned things was on our 3rd anniversary. I had planned a romantic getaway, something just for us. But at the last minute, he canceled. Something urgent came up, he had said, his tone brisk, distracted. I had swallowed my disappointment, told myself it was just work. After all, Nathaniel was a man with responsibilities. But doubt had already begun to creep in. And then, tonight happened. Tonight, I discovered the truth. Nathaniel hadn't just married me for love. He had married me for power, for status, for the empire that came with my name. And now that he had what he wanted, he was done pretending. But he had made one crucial mistake. He thought I was weak. He thought I would crumble. But I wasn't just Isabella Devereaux, the woman he deceived. I was about to become the woman who would destroy him. The first crack in my perfect world came on an ordinary evening so ordinary that I almost missed it. Nathaniel was in his study, his back to me as he spoke into his phone. He hadn't noticed me standing in the doorway. I hadn't meant to eavesdrop, but something about his tone made me pause. "We're almost there," he said, his voice low but firm. "Once the final documents are signed, the Devereaux name will belong to us." My heart skipped a beat. Us? Before I could react, he hung up, slipping his phone into his pocket. When he turned and saw me, his expression softened into a smile, the same smile that once made me weak in the knees. "Hey, love," he said, crossing the room to kiss my forehead. "Didn't hear you come in." I forced a smile. "Who are you talking to?" His answer was effortless, smooth. "Just some investors." I wanted to believe him, but something about the way he said it, the ease, the confidence felt too rehearsed. Later that night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed beside him, listening to the steady rhythm of his breathing, while my mind raced. The words replayed in my head like a haunting melody. Once the final documents are signed, the Devereaux name will belong to us. I needed answers. The next morning, I did something I had never done before. I went into his study while he was in the shower. Nathaniel was meticulous, his desk always organized, no papers left lying around. But his laptop was open. And the moment I touched the trackpad, the screen lit up. An email was on display. Subject: Final stage the Devereaux takeover from Heiress He Co. Legal firm to Nathaniel Blackwood. I clicked it. My stomach twisted as I read the contents. Nathaniel had been orchestrating a plan for months, a hostile takeover of my father's company, a web of forged contracts, secret meetings, and silent acquisitions. The name Blackwood Holdings was all over the documents. It wasn't a business merger. It was a coup. And I was nothing more than collateral damage. I gripped the edge of his desk, my breath shallow, my vision blurring. The man I had loved, the man I had trusted with everything, had been using me from the very beginning. My hands trembled as I backed away from the desk. I needed to think. I needed time. But fate wasn't on my side. Because at that exact moment, Nathaniel's voice cut through the silence. "What are you doing, Isabella?" I turned slowly. He stood in the doorway, a towel slung around his waist, his green eyes locked onto mine. But they weren't filled with warmth. They were calculating. And in that moment, I knew he wasn't even going to deny it. I stared at him, my heart hammering so hard I could feel it in my throat. What was I supposed to say? That I had just found out my husband had spent years plotting to take over my family's empire? That every whispered "I love you," every lingering kiss, every moment we shared had been nothing but part of his master plan? I swallowed hard, forcing my voice to stay steady. "I was just looking for a pen," I lied, trying to sound casual. Nathaniel's expression didn't change. He leaned against the doorframe, his sharp eyes studying me, assessing me. I had seen that look before in business meetings, when he was silently dissecting his competition. And now, I was the opponent sitting across from him. "Did you find what you were looking for?" he asked smoothly, his voice as calm as ever. The air felt thick, suffocating. I could still hear the words from that email screaming in my head. Final stage, the Devereaux takeover. I wanted to scream at him. Demand answers. Ask him why. But I couldn't. Not yet. Because if he had been lying to me for years, if he was capable of marrying me only to destroy everything my family built, then I had to be smart. I forced a smile, my fingers curling into fists at my sides. "No," I said. "Couldn't find one." He chuckled, walking toward me, closing the distance between us. When he reached out, running a hand down my arm, I had to fight the urge to flinch. "You've been acting strange lately," he murmured, tilting my chin up so I had to look at him. "Everything okay? Everything okay?" I wanted to laugh. "No, Nathaniel. Everything is not okay." I wanted to shove the laptop in his face and demand the truth. I wanted to see his mask shatter, see if there was even a shred of guilt beneath it. But I didn't, because this wasn't just about heartbreak. This was about power. And if Nathaniel thought I was weak, thought I was just a pawn in his game, he was about to learn the hard way that he had underestimated me. I placed my hand over his, smiling up at him like the devoted wife he thought I still was. "I'm fine," I said softly, "just a little tired." His gaze lingered on mine for a moment too long, as if he was searching for something doubt. Suspicion. But then he nodded, pressing a kiss to my forehead. "Get some rest, love." I held my breath as he walked past me, disappearing into our bedroom. The moment I heard the door click shut, I exhaled shakily, my hands trembling as I pressed them against the desk. What do I do now? I wanted to run. I wanted to grab my things and leave, to put as much distance between us as possible. But then what? Let him win? Let him take everything? No. Nathaniel had played his game well. But now? It was my turn. I thought discovering Nathaniel's betrayal was the worst thing that could happen. I was wrong. Because the real nightmare was just beginning. 2 days after I found the email, I decided to take matters into my own hands. If Nathaniel was planning a takeover, I needed to find proof, something tangible that I could use to stop him. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I followed him. Nathaniel had told me he was going to the office for an emergency meeting. But I knew better now. Dressed in dark jeans and a hoodie, I took my car and stayed far enough behind him so he wouldn't notice. My heart pounded as I talked him through the city, my mind racing with possibilities. Was he meeting investors? Lawyers? Some hidden partner in his scheme? But nothing could have prepared me for where he actually went. When he finally pulled up to a sleek high-rise, my stomach twisted. It wasn't his office. It wasn't a corporate building. It was a luxury penthouse. And the moment he stepped out of his car, the front door opened and she was waiting for him. Tall. Elegant. Dressed in a silk robe that barely covered her body. She smiled as she leaned against the doorframe, her dark red lips curling into something wicked. Nathaniel didn't hesitate. He walked right up to her, his hands landing on her waist, pulling her close. And then he kissed her. Not just a kiss. A kiss that made my world tilt. I gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. My breath caught in my throat, my vision blurring. This wasn't just business. This wasn't just about taking my family's company. Nathaniel was cheating on me. Every lie he had ever told me, every soft "I love you," every moment of tenderness had all unraveled in that single second. I wanted to scream. To storm out of the car, march up to them, and tear them apart. But instead, I just sat there, frozen, because now I had my answer. Nathaniel never loved me. And now, I had nothing left to lose. But he did. And I was going to take everything. I had spent the last 72 hours preparing for war. Every document, every transaction, Every secret meeting. I had it all. Nathaniel thought he was careful, but he had made one fatal mistake. He underestimated me. I wasn't just Isabella Devereaux, the devoted wife. I was the daughter of a legacy. A woman raised by a father who built an empire from nothing. And I wasn't about to let a man like Nathaniel destroy what generations before me had created. So I did what he never expected. I invited him to dinner. The same way I always did, soft, sweet, the perfect wife. I even wore his favorite dress, the one he bought me on our honeymoon. He walked into the dining room that evening, his guard down, flashing that charming smile. The one I once believed in. The one that meant nothing now. "You look stunning, love," he said, brushing a kiss against my cheek before sitting across from me. I poured him a glass of wine, my fingers steady despite the storm raging inside me. I watched as he took a sip, utterly unaware of what was about to hit him. I waited until the first course was served. Until he was comfortable. And then, I slid the first file across the table. He barely glanced at it before looking up at me, amused. "What's this?" "Go on," I said, my voice dangerously calm. "Read it." He smirked, picking up the folder with ease like he expected nothing but meaningless papers. But then, I watched it happen. The moment his face shifted. The way his smirk disappeared, his fingers tightening around the edges of the document. Page after page of evidence. His emails, his contracts, his betrayal, his entire plan to steal my family's company. Nathaniel's jaw tensed. He closed the folder slowly, placing it back on the table like it burned his fingers. Then, he looked at me. "How long have you known?" His voice was even, controlled. But his eyes? For the first time, I saw fear. I leaned back in my chair, crossing my legs. Long enough. A tense silence stretched between us. And then, his lips curled back into something dangerous. "Isabella," he said smoothly, leaning forward. "Whatever you think you know, you don't. Business is... oh, don't." I cut him off, my voice sharper than a blade. "Don't insult me with another lie." His expression flickered. A crack in his perfect mask. I wasn't done. "Do you know what hurt the most?" I asked, my voice softer now. It wasn't the company. It wasn't even a betrayal. I tilted my head, letting my next words destroy him. It was her. There it was. The moment realization dawned on his face. Nathaniel stilled. His fingers clenched. "She?" he echoed. I let out a humorless laugh, shaking my head. "God, you really thought I wouldn't find out, didn't you?" I pulled out my phone, tapped the screen, and turned it toward him. A video played. Him, kissing her, touching her, loving her the way he once loved me. Nathaniel paled. His breath hitched just slightly, but I caught it. I caught everything. I watched as he searched for something, some way to spin this, to fix this, but there was no fixing this. Slowly he leaned back, his fingers drumming against the table. And then, he did something that made my blood turn to ice. He smiled. Not out of amusement, out of acceptance. "I suppose," he mused, tilting his head, "I should have known you wouldn't go down without a fight." That was it. No apology, no regret. Just a man who had been caught. Something inside me shattered completely. I had spent years loving this man, trusting him, giving him every piece of my heart. And to him, I was nothing more than a stepping stone. I swallowed back the lump in my throat and reached for the final document. The one I had been saving for last. "This," I said, sliding it toward him, "is the part where you lose." Nathaniel's gaze flicked downward. He scanned the papers quickly, his own tactic being used against him. His eyes widened. He shot up from his chair, slamming his hands on the table. "You..." I smiled. Me. The documents in front of him were just proof of his betrayal. They were my counterattack. Legal orders stripping him of any power in the company. A takeover of my own one that would wipe his name from every deal he had made. I had already spoken to my father. The board. Every key investor. Nathaniel Blackwood was finished. His mouth opened, then closed. I stood, adjusting my dress, picking up my glass of wine. "Dinner's over," I said simply. "And so are we." Nathaniel's nostrils flared. His fists clenched. But he wasn't in control anymore. I was. So I turned my back on him, walking out of the dining room with my head held high. And for the first time since I met Nathaniel Blackwood, I felt free. The sound of my heels echoed through the long hallway as I walked away from the man who had once been my whole world. But I didn't stop. I didn't look back. I had spent years being Isabella Blackwood, the devoted wife, the woman standing in the shadows of a man who never truly loved her. But tonight, Isabella Devereaux walked out of that dining room, leaving behind the ashes of a marriage that was never real. By the time I reached the elevator, my phone buzzed. "Father, it's done. He's out." A slow, victorious smile stretched across my lips. It was over. Nathaniel had been officially stripped of his position, his influence, his power. Everything he had, built everything he had stolen, was now gone. He had tried to take over the Devereaux empire. Instead, I took him down first. The elevator doors slid open, and I stepped inside, exhaling as I pressed the button for the lobby. This should have felt like victory, and in a way it did. But beneath it all, there was still an ache. A dull, hollow pain sitting deep in my chest. Because once, I had loved him. Once, I had believed in forever. And now, I wasn't sure I believed in love at all. 1 week later, Nathaniel Blackwood had officially vanished. After the board unanimously voted him out, he disappeared from the public eye. His name had been wiped from our family's company, his accounts frozen, his investors walking away in droves. But I knew Nathaniel. I knew he wasn't the type of man to accept defeat so easily. So when I walked into my office that evening and found him sitting in my chair, waiting for me, I wasn't surprised. I stopped in the doorway, my pulse steady, my face unreadable. "You must be desperate if you're here," I said, locking the door behind me. Nathaniel chuckled, slow and dark, before standing. "Desperate?" he mused. "No, darling, just impressed." I ignored the way my stomach twisted at the familiar term. I wasn't his darling anymore. He stepped closer, his cologne still so achingly familiar. "You really thought of everything, didn't you?" I met his gaze, unflinching. "You should have known better than to play against me." Nathaniel exhaled, his lips curling into something almost amused. "I suppose I should have." For a brief second, neither of us spoke. The air between us was thick-heavy with everything unsaid. And then, he reached into his pocket and pulled something out. A key. My key. My breath caught. "Where did you should change your locks," he said smoothly, placing it on my desk. "You never know who might still have access." A warning. A reminder that this wasn't over. Nathaniel might have lost this battle. But I could see it in his eyes. The war had just begun. As he walked past me, his lips brushed against my ear, his voice low. "See you soon, Isabella." And just like that, Nathaniel Blackwood was gone. For now.